T.D. Jakes has a voice that fills a room like thunder wrapped in silk, a presence people call anointing, favor, even God-given power. Crowds cling to every word he breathes, but nobody dares ask the real question: what if it isn't holy? What if the force pulling everyone toward him is something else entirely? Something seductive, ancient, and hungry. I know, because I saw it up close, closer than anyone should. This is part 2, the truth that was never meant to be spoken. And before this story ends, I'll give you the one prayer you'll need to protect yourself from the thing that followed me home and still hasn't let go. I hadn't been to church in weeks, not because I stopped believing, not even close, but because something in me had dried up without warning, like the soil of my spirit had suddenly forgotten how to hold water. I'd wake up on Sunday mornings, reach for my Bible out of habit, and feel nothing. Not rejection, not anger, just a soft, colorless numbness that made me wonder if God had temporarily stepped back from me, or if I had stepped back from him without realizing it. Growing up, the church wasn't just a place. It was the rhythm of my entire childhood. Sunday mornings were my family's heartbeat. My mother's voice humming through the apartment, the crackle of gospel radio, the smell of starch and cheap cologne as we pressed our clothes. Missing service felt like missing oxygen. Back then, if someone skipped a week, the older ladies would say, "Baby, your spirit gonna starve." And I believed them. I still do. Which is why drifting away this time felt like quietly failing at something sacred. I was tired, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Work had been a storm, long hours, broken sleep, the kind of stress that makes your chest feel like a locked room. Add loneliness on top of that. The kind you don't admit out loud, and suddenly sitting in a pew felt harder than staying home. I kept telling myself I'd go next week, then next week, then next. And the weeks blended into silence. But then, one quiet Sunday morning, something pulled me out of bed. A tug, not painful, not urgent, just steady, like someone lightly hooking a finger under my ribs and guiding me upright. No booming voice, no vision, just an instinct that felt older than logic. Get up, something said inside me. Drive. Drive where? I had no idea, but I listened. I left my apartment still half groggy, half confused, letting the highway swallow me without planning a route. Every exit looked wrong, then almost right, then wrong again. I wasn't heading to my old church. I wasn't heading anywhere familiar. I just followed the pull until, on a quiet stretch of road I'd never taken before, I saw it. A tiny storefront church, 30 members at most, wedged between a barber shop and a boarded-up cell phone store. The sign out front was faded, the cross leaning slightly to the left, like it had given up trying to stay straight. But something about it whispered, "Here, come here." Inside, the sanctuary was honest, the way poverty is honest. Thin carpet, folding chairs, a pulpit someone's uncle probably built by hand. The pastor spoke with sincerity, not polish. His sermon zigzagged, repeated itself, wandered, found its way again. But you could tell he cared. You could tell he meant every word. I wanted to feel filled. I wanted to feel something break loose in me. But all I felt was off, like my body was in the room. But something in me stood at the doorway waiting, watching, listening for a different voice that never came. It was a strange sensation, belonging and not belonging at the same time. Like I was meant to be there, but also meant to be somewhere else entirely. When the service ended, the dozen or so people clapped softly, the sound echoing strangely against the small walls. I nodded to a few folks, breathed in the faint scent of coffee and old hymnals, and stepped outside into the quiet parking lot. And that's when I saw it. A plain white envelope tucked neatly under my windshield wiper. My first name written on the front. Only my first name. For a moment, I just stared at it. No one in that little church knew me. I hadn't spoken to a soul except the usher who handed me a bulletin. My car wasn't flashy. I wasn't noticeable. Hands slightly shaking, I opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, not typed. The ink pressed hard into the paper, as if the writer leaned in close, meaning every stroke. My son, forgive the distance. I've missed seeing your face in the house of the Lord. I pray he guides you back to where you belong. T.D. Jakes. I froze. Bishop Jakes? Writing me? Apologizing to me? It didn't make any sense. I had never met him personally. I'd been in his services before, sure, but no handshake, no conversation, nothing that would put my name in his hands on a Sunday morning. The tone of the letter felt personal, intimate, like he wasn't addressing a crowd, he was addressing me alone. I folded it quickly, heart pounding, and drove home with the envelope sitting in my cup holder like a ticking clock. For the next few days, it was all I thought about. The way my name looked in that handwriting, the warmth that hit my chest whenever I reread the last line, the strange mix of comfort and unease twining together so tightly I couldn't separate them. I found myself watching old T.D. Jakes' sermons again, letting his voice roll through my living room like it used to. But this time, something felt different. His voice didn't just inspire me, it pulled at me, almost hypnotic, like a rope wrapping tighter and tighter, drawing me closer. And when I paused his sermons, I felt it. Eyes, not literal ones, not visible, but the sense of being watched from the corner of a dim sanctuary I couldn't see. Weeks passed, and the pull only grew stronger. It settled in my chest like a hand, guiding me towards something I couldn't name. Every time Bishop Jakes' sermons autoplayed, that warmth bloomed inside me, comforting, familiar, addictive. And yet, some darker part of me flinched each time. Some instinct I didn't understand whispered, "This isn't God calling you back." But the urge became overwhelming, stronger each day, stronger than my fatigue, stronger than my loneliness, stronger than the unsettling dreams. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, I finally said it out loud. I'm going back. Not to the little storefront church, not to any church at random, but to his church. T.D. Jakes' megachurch, the source of whatever had started tugging at me that strange Sunday morning. I told myself it was God. I told myself it was healing. I told myself it was time. But deep in my chest, beneath the words, beneath the hope, beneath the guilt, something whispered otherwise, and I ignored it. For the last time. I told myself I was ready when I pulled into the parking lot of T.D. Jakes' megachurch. I wasn't. Before I even stepped out of my car, the building felt alive. Not figuratively, literally, like it had lungs. Like each glass panel was expanding and contracting with the crowd inside. A low, steady vibration rolled through the ground, like a heartbeat I couldn't place. I joined the stream of bodies pushing toward the entrance, but something was different from the last time I'd been here. The energy was sharper, hungrier. People rushed past me like they were late to an altar call that determined eternity. Women clutched their Bibles to their chests, like they might float away if they let go. Families walked in wearing their absolute best. Jewels, tailored suits, sparkling dresses, everything ironed and perfect as if they were approaching royalty, not a church service. Older men were already wiping tears before they even sat down, muttering apologies to God under their breath. I walked through the doors and felt a wave of heat wash over me. Not the warmth of a building filled with bodies, no. This was personal, targeted. It felt like stepping into someone else's emotion, someone else's desire, someone else's hunger. I tried to shake it off, but as I entered the sanctuary, the air thickened. The room buzzed, full stadium lights, fog machines, color-changing LEDs sweeping over a stage big enough to host a Beyoncé tour. Then the music hit. Not worship, not praise. A full-on stadium-level blast that punched me in the ribs. The choir sang like they were on a countdown clock. Every note carried by people shaking, screaming, crying, as if a command had gone out. Feel something. Now. Hands shot up with tremors, strong enough to rattle jewelry. Voices cracked from shouting the pastor's name, not God's. People in the aisles danced and sobbed and collapsed into each other like they were being carried by an invisible tide. I was moved. How could I not be? The energy was overwhelming, but underneath the awe was a pit of unease I couldn't swallow. I slipped into a seat and watched as an old lady in front of me tried to force a wrinkled $20 bill into the offering bucket, hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped it. When she finally managed it, she sagged with relief, whispering, take it all. Bless me, Lord." But her eyes weren't on the cross. They were on the stage, on him. 2 rows over, a woman pulled a laminated picture out of her purse, T.D. Jakes in a purple robe, and kissed it softly before placing it on her lap, like a saint card, like an idol. Something clenched in my stomach. This wasn't worship. This was devotion twisted into something else, something with control. When T.D. Jakes finally stepped onto the stage, the entire sanctuary gasped, a single collective inhale that made my skin crawl. He lifted his hand just slightly, and the room erupted like someone had uncorked a bottle under pressure. My chest tightened instantly, not from fear, but from a pull, a gravity. His voice rolled out through the speakers with a warmth that didn't make sense. Too intimate, too penetrating. It felt like it wasn't hitting my ears at all. It was landing right inside my spine, whispering straight into my bones. He paced the stage, commanding, graceful, heavy with presence. Every movement drew the crowd closer. Every phrase made people shudder, reaching out like if they could just touch him, their entire life would change. At one point, he greeted a young woman in a military uniform. She looked proud until he stepped off the stage and shook her hand. Their handshake lingered, just a moment too long. His hand trembled slightly, not with age, not with nerves, with excitement, hunger. Her face flushed. The crowd screamed. He smiled. And I told myself I imagined it. The sermon went on, lights dimming a touch to dramatize his words. My eyes grew heavy, not sleepy, just slow, like the room had thickened into syrup and I was wading through it. Then something shifted. I blinked, but it felt like I didn't open my eyes again the same way. The room looked the same, but wrong. Sharper shadows, colder air, silence under the sound system. I scanned the crowd, faces glowing under LED lights, and then I saw her, a woman sitting dead center of a pew across the aisle. Southern. Old-fashioned hat, huge, elegant. Her posture perfect, her body still. Her face was shadowed, except for one thing. Her smile, glowing, too wide, teeth too perfect, too even, like porcelain, arranged by hand. I couldn't see her eyes, just that smile shining like a moon sliver. Something in me froze, but I didn't look away. Slowly, her head began to turn toward me. Not naturally, not smoothly. Her neck shifted like bones bending the wrong way, joints creaking under flesh. Her hat tilted as she turned, that glowing smile widening, stretching as if pulled by invisible hands. I wanted to scream. I couldn't. When her face finally aligned with mine, when I felt those invisible eyes lock onto me, that smile glitched. A flicker, a distortion in the dark. And then I jolted awake. My body snapped forward in the pew, breath ragged, heart slamming against my ribs hard enough to hurt. Sweat ran down my forehead. The lights were normal again. The choir sang softly behind Jakes' voice. I looked toward the pew where she'd been. Empty. Only a Bible left open on the seat. The verse highlighted in yellow, "Yield not to temptation, for yielding is sin." I swallowed hard. After that, the whole room looked different. Not literally. My mind kept insisting that. But spiritually, Emotionally, I saw the crowd with new eyes, people reaching for T.D. Jakes like he was light incarnate. A woman near the stage whispering, "Touch me. Please touch me." Like a lover begging. A man shaking so violently he looked like he was overdosing on worship, whispering more. They weren't worshiping God. They were worshiping him. The man, the presence, the thing standing on the stage drawing breath into every corner of the room. And then T.D. Jakes paused mid-sentence. He stopped. His eyes swept across the sanctuary, slow, deliberate, hunting, until they landed directly on me. He smiled, that slow, knowing, intimate smile, the same one from the letter. Something feminine and warm swirled through the air, brushing against the back of my neck like a woman's fingertips. The same presence from my dreams, the same heat, the same whisper. I felt chosen, I felt marked, I felt hunted. And I knew whatever was pulling me back here had finally found me. I stayed seated long after the sermon ended, long after the choir stepped down, and the lights faded into warm, honey-colored glows. The sanctuary was still vibrating with leftover praise. Shouts, applause, murmurs of amen, all swirling together like thick incense. But none of it felt like worship anymore. It felt like aftermath. Like whatever storm had passed through the room was still lingering in the walls. T.D. Jakes stood center stage, smiling, glowing, breathing in the attention like it was oxygen. People swarmed him with desperation in their faces, urgency in their steps. A woman rushed forward and grabbed the sleeve of his robe, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Bishop, please, just touch me, just once." Another man dropped to his knees right in front of him. "Bless my business, Bishop, please. I need this breakthrough." Ushers circled them like Secret Service, shielding him, guiding the chosen forward and pushing the unchosen back with gentle, almost rehearsed force. Through all of it, I felt the same sensation from before, the rope in my chest tightening, pulling. A silent command, "Go to him. Go. Now." I shook it off, stood quickly, but my legs felt heavy, like something was walking in them with me. As I maneuvered toward the aisle, a hand grabbed my wrist, strong, sudden, startling. I turned. A middle-aged man, eyes too wide, smile stretched thin across his face like he'd forgotten how to wear it properly. "If he looked at you like that," he whispered. His voice was low, trembling with excitement. "It means you've been chosen." "Chosen for what?" I asked. His smile grew. Too much gum, not enough sanity. "You'll see." His grip tightened. I pulled back, heart thudding. His eyes tracked me as I slipped into the flow of people exiting. I tried to breathe steady as I moved down the hallway, but something felt wrong. The air trembled, as if holding its breath. Then I heard it. A soft giggle. I froze. Ahead, a young volunteer stood in a sliver of shadow, staring at T.D. Jakes through a cracked office door. She held her hands clasped in front of her chest, shoulders shaking with anticipation. Jakes walked past her, close enough that his robe brushed her fingertips. He paused, just a moment, and touched her hand. Her entire body jolted like she'd been plugged into a generator. A small cry escaped her lips. She whispered, breathless, "Thank you." As he continued down the hall, a voice, right behind my ear, exhaled, "He feeds the one who feeds him." I spun around. Nobody. Just empty hallway and flickering lights. My pulse wouldn't slow down. I pushed forward, almost reaching the lobby when a velvet-soft voice drifted through the crowd. "Son," I went rigid. "Come talk to me." T.D. Jakes stood near the side door leading to the inner wing of the building. His smile was small, warm, too personal. His eyes held mine like he'd been waiting. I didn't remember walking toward him, but suddenly, I was. He guided me into a private lounge, a room that smelled faintly of jasmine and something else, something sweet and decaying beneath the surface. He poured tea like a man hosting an old friend, not a stranger. He handed me the cup, then sat opposite. His gaze heavy with meaning I didn't understand. I didn't even think before I asked, "Why'd you go to those Diddy parties?" His smile didn't fade, but something behind it twitched, like a curtain shifting in a draft. He looked down at his tea as though he could see something floating in the steam. "Sometimes the devil throws a feast," he murmured, "just to see who's hungry." I couldn't tell if he was warning me or testing me. Jakes leaned forward, eyes glinting. "Not everyone who dances in the dark is lost, son. Sometimes the dark," he paused, savoring the moment, "invites you." A pulse of heat crawled through my spine. His words felt less like metaphors and more like propositions. He rose then, placing a hand on my shoulder. Too warm, too soft, lingering longer than a blessing should. "You're here for a reason." The lights dimmed without anyone touching a switch. The room thickened, like breath was being held inside the walls. Something warm brushed the back of my neck like feminine fingers. I jerked forward. Jakes smiled knowingly. "Come." He led me into a long hallway I'd never seen before. Dim, narrow, lights flickering overhead in slow, deliberate intervals. Our footsteps echoed strangely. 2 sets of feet, but 3 sets of echoes. I kept glancing behind me, convinced someone was following. We stopped at a door glowing faintly from the bottom, warm gold spilling onto the floor like liquid. Jakes opened it slowly. A bedroom, not a lavish one. Intimate, soft velvet curtains, perfume thick in the air. On the dresser sat a small wooden box, latch undone. Jakes walked toward it like approaching an altar. He lifted the lid. Inside, a bottle of baby oil, placed carefully in velvet lining, like a sacred relic. My stomach twisted. "Bishop," my voice cracked. "What is this?" He didn't answer, because something else already had my attention. In the far corner of the room, a silhouette, feminine, still, perfectly still, watching. Her body didn't sway, her chest didn't rise, yet the air around her pulsed, breathing for her. Shadows bent toward her feet like they were bowing. Her smile was visible first, glowing faintly, too wide, porcelain perfect. The same smile from my dream. My throat closed. "Bishop," I whispered, unable to look away. "What is that?" In the corner. Jakes didn't deny her, didn't flinch, didn't pretend he didn't see the thing standing there. He turned toward her with a familiarity that chilled me to the bone. "They've called her many things over the years," he said softly. "The tempter, the whisperer." His voice deepened. "Jezebel." The entity's smile stretched, skin tightening, teeth multiplying like something growing beneath her gums. Jakes finally looked at me and smiled. "But me?" His fingers brushed the baby oil bottle like stroking a pet. "I call her my friend." The shadows around her fluttered like a curtain inhaling. Jakes took a step toward me, the bottle cradled in his hand, and the room exhaled around us. Jakes stepped close enough that his breath brushed my cheek. "She chose you, son," he whispered. "She wants you." The words slithered into my ear like silk dipped in poison. My knees went weak. My vision wavered. The room began to hum, not in sound, but in spirit. A deep vibration, like a tuning fork pressed against my soul. My breathing turned sharp, shallow. I felt myself slipping, consciousness thinning at the edges, thoughts blurring. Her smile widened. Jakes lifted his free hand, palm hovering over my forehead like he was about to anoint me, like I was being offered, claimed. The hum grew louder. The walls looked like they were bending, breathing. The room's shadows stretched toward me, curling like fingers. My heartbeat pounded like war drums, fast, loud, desperate. And then I heard it, a whisper inside me. Not the seductive voice I'd been hearing for weeks, something else, something small, familiar, warm. "Run." It was the first holy thing I'd felt all night. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I jerked backward so violently that Jake's hand swiped air instead of my skin. The bottle slipped from his fingers, landing on the carpet with a dull thud. Her face snapped from a smile into a snarl. Shadow twisting, jaw stretching, eyes blazing with something ancient. I grabbed the doorknob and yanked it open. Jakes didn't shout. He didn't chase. He simply whispered behind me, "Don't fight her, son. She's already chosen." I ran. The hallway wasn't the same hallway I'd come through. The lights flickered in violent bursts, long enough for me to see the corridor stretch impossibly far, then shrink, then stretch again. My vision shook with each step. The carpets felt soft, then coarse, then like hands grabbing my ankles. Footsteps echoed behind me, slow, heavy, calm. I risked one glance over my shoulder and froze. It wasn't Jake's. It wasn't a person at all. It was a shape moving toward me. Shape of a woman, but tall, too tall. Limbs bending wrong as she glided down the hall. Her mouth hung open in a perfect predatory smile. I looked away. I didn't dare look back again. I slammed through the exit door and stumbled into the night. The humid air slapped me across the face. Hot, dirty, real. My lungs dragged in oxygen like it was water in a desert. My hands shook so violently I could barely unlock my phone. Somehow I pressed the Uber button. My entire body trembled, sweat running down my spine. I kept my eyes on the street, refusing to turn around. But something made me look anyway. There, behind the stained glass windows of the church, a silhouette stood. Not Jake's, her. A woman-shaped shadow with a split grin that reached too far up her cheeks. Watching, waiting. My Uber pulled up and I dove into the back seat, slamming the door so hard the driver flinched. "Rough night?" he asked. I didn't answer. As we sped through the streets, streetlights streaked across my face like slashes. I couldn't stop shaking. My phone buzzed in my hand, but I ignored it. My mind was spinning, pieces clicking together with horrifying clarity. The first sermon, the trance-like crowd, the woman fainting, the handshake that lingered, the dreams, the letter, the perfume, the box, the oil, the room, the smile, the shadow, her. It all aligned. "No man should have that much power," I whispered, voice cracking, "unless something else is holding the leash." I looked up at the rearview mirror. For half a second, just half a breath, a woman's smiling face appeared behind me in the reflection. Same hat, same smile, same impossible hungry eyes. I spun around. Nothing. Just the dark back seat. The Uber dropped me at my building. My legs barely worked. I stumbled up the sidewalk, phone vibrating again in my hand. Unknown number. One new voicemail. My stomach dropped. I lifted the phone to my ear. TD Jakes' voice filled the speaker. Warm, calm, intimate. "Son, she liked you." Then softer, almost tender. "She'll come back when you're ready." Click. Silence. I stood frozen under the streetlight, shaking so hard it felt like my bones were rattling. My apartment door felt miles away. My shadow stretched long behind me like something was following. And I knew this wasn't over, not even close.